Welcome back. Thank you very much indeed. Many thanks indeed to Grandpa Clothing at Dansuman for my outfit this morning. 020-985-5696. That's 020-985-5696. If you haven't gotten a copy yet of The Usurper's Dream, it's by Yayi Kobina, A.J. Jackson, producer one time of TV3Newday. This is his book, the first in the series. It tells a beautiful story of the Ashanti Empire, the kingdom, and also dedicates a lot of, gives us historical antecedents. It's out there on the internet for you to procure, but you can always call 0266-850-311. That's 0266-850-311. Is one of our own who's exploring his literary abilities, and we need to support him as much as possible. 0266-850-311. The Usurper's Dream. I've read it. You would love it. I tell you what, you'll love it. Well, the blurb says The Usurper's Dream is a thrilling reimagining of the formation of the Ashanti Empire. It weaves historic events with the African belief systems of God and magic to tell the tale of Osei Tutu and Okomfo Anokye, his chief oracle, as they face mighty forces, both mortal and mythical, to create one of the most celebrated empires in modern African history. Yayi Kobina is a Ghanaian novelist. The Usurper's Dream served as his debut work as an author, but before embarking on a career as a novelist, he worked as a journalist and script writer. And I told you he used to produce TV3Newday, multiple award-winning show here. But I've been joined in studio by a man, if you cast your mind back to when we spoke about the Queen's funeral and the conversations that emanated from it about repatriation and all of those ones. Well, he is a peacemaker. That's his profession. And for those of you who may not be aware, the Liberian and Sierra Leonean civil wars had him at the focus and the fulcrum, trying to end those two conflicts and bring back development to the people. He is also the founder of the Black History Month UK and a former Special Projects Coordinator for Greater London Council and Research Assistant to Lord Eric Avebury, Chairman of the Parliamentary Human Rights Group. My guest this morning is Ichaba Adai Sibo. I call him Uncle Ichaba. Good morning. How are you doing?
Fine. Thank you.
Welcome.
You very much.
And by the way, he's an author too. This is his book, his copy of the book I borrowed. So that's for you, Chief. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
You look very well.
Thank you.
Great. Let's trace the historical antecedents of the Black History Month. That's what we're talking about. Yeah. What is it, the Black History Month?
Black History Month is about correcting the misinterpretation of our existence on this earth as African people.
Right.
Hitherto, it has been his story about us. His story. And an incident happened in London in 1986. I went to work at the Greater London Council, and our group secretary looked very downcast and was almost crying. And I asked her, Elizabeth, what's the matter? And she said, would you believe it? As I was putting Marcus to bed last night, and after prayers, as I was leaving the room, Marcus called me, Mom. I went to him, and he asked the mom, Mom, why can't I be white?
Wow.
And Marcus was only 6 years old. And the mother had deliberately named Marcus after Marcus Mosiah Garvey.
Okay. A Tower in Black history.
A Tower Black nationalist who inspired Nkrumah and other leaders all over Africa and the Caribbean. So there was a problem with identity. And Elizabeth was saying that she has failed the daughter. And I said, Elizabeth, no, you haven't failed the daughter. It is the institutions of state that has failed your daughter. The local government where we are working now has failed your daughter. The Inner London Education Authority has failed your daughter. The schools, the curriculum have failed your daughter. So something had to be done. And that is what set me on. So I put some proposals together to the council, which I got a lot of support.
Right.
And so we decided to organize historical lectures and concerts to celebrate Africa's contribution to world civilization from antiquity to the present.
Okay.
And to remind the English people that in the second century, they were facing difficulties from those that they called the savages from the north. And it took an African emperor of Rome, Septimus Severus, to come to England, Britain, and deal with the problem and rebuild the Hadrian Wall and give them centuries of peace. And what is interesting about Septimus Severus is that he used to order his food from Africa. He ate his African diet, African food.
Right.
So you have to remind people that we have contributed greatly. So that was what really triggered us to set up the Black History Month.
Interesting. And how has it been so far, in terms of the response, or maybe in the early days, comparable to presently? What has been the response?
As I sit here, this is the 35th year, so we are marking the 35 years of Black History Month.
Right. And it's for the full month of October.
It's the full month of October. And it's incredible. There are over 10,000, get to 20,000 activities that are organized during the month of October all over the country. It is the largest event in the country because you have a whole month that is dedicated to dealing with Black presence and Black history. So you have all institutions of state that are involved. The armed forces, the Navy, the museums, the banks, the transportation, the hospitals, the schools. Everybody is involved. And the whole country is charged with activities to celebrate Black presence and Black history and all that.
Is there anything for the Black man to be proud of? And I'm taking this from the perspective of little Marcus back then. If you look at the steps and the strides that have been achieved, is there anything for the Black man, a Black young man today in his prime, to be proud of as a Black person?
There is a lot to be proud of. In that, if you look at where we have come from, it's incredible. You look at, by 1947, 1948, we were totally colonized.
Right.
You see, and those who came before us, the Nkrumah group, CLR, James, Jomo Kenyatta, and others, in about 1943, they gathered in London and decided that the Pan-African Congresses that are being held all over the place, almost every other year or 5 years, 6 years, is not leading us to anywhere. So we had to think about the issue of land, because colonization is the annexation or the grabbing of land from the owners. So we have to take our land back.
Right.
So they decided that they will have to find a strategic place where they can take the land back and then use that as a launching pad to free the rest of Africa. So they decided first on Sierra Leone, then Akwaje's letter came, and then they decided that Nkrumah is going. So when Nkrumah landed in Ghana in 1947, December, And within 10 years, he has mobilized to kick out the British, and we gained our independence. And then between 1957, 6 March, and 1963, 25th May, we had almost 32 African countries gathering at Addis Ababa to form the Organization of African Unity.
Right.
If you look at that space of time, nothing like that has happened anywhere. Anywhere. And that we should be proud of.
But somebody would ask, what has been the relevance of these? For example, you have ECOWAS, OAU became AU. What has been the relevance relative to Dr. Nkrumah's spirited charge on the Independence Day, that the black man is capable of handling his own affairs? Have we lived up to that billing?
We are struggling still. But one thing that we have ignored at our own peril is the trauma of colonization. Colonization has affected us, and we deny this to our own detriment. Colonization has affected us so much so that at a point in time in Ghana, in our contemporary Ghana, history was even pulled out of the national curriculum. Am I correct?
Right.
Yes. How can that be? So if you do have a sense of history, you are lost. You have no roots. So that has what colonization has lobotomized most of us, so that we live and exist in duality.
But would that not be tantamount to engaging or wallowing in pity parties?
No. You have to recognize the pain and the trauma that we've gone through in order to get over it. If you don't recognize it, then you can't get over it.
Are we doing that?
That is the challenge facing, and that is us. And that is why I get very upset and angry when such questions are put, because I know that my generation has failed your generation.
Say that again.
My generation has failed your generation.
Only a few of you will admit that.
And
that your generation has failed.
Yes, my generation has failed your generation.
How did you do that?
And we have betrayed you, your generation, because the Nkrumah generation made it possible for me to be what I am.
Right.
I grew up in Abu Asawasi area. I went to Abu local authority school and all that. But they created conditions for me to enter one of the best schools at the Saddle and to finish. And along, there were several people from poor backgrounds around in Cape Coast area who entered most of the schools. And they prepared the ground for us to be able to graduate, go to the best universities in the world, offer the scholarships and all that. And we went out to see how other societies have ordered their countries. We went to universities at Temple, Philadelphia, at Oxford, at Cambridge, and we never went open gutters, sewers, flooding and all that. We never experienced that, just as you showed wager, nothing like that. So we have had a mental vision of quality life. We've lived it.
Right.
Then we come and take power from 1982, January, when we took absolute power, exercise power over life and property. We could kill and people could vanish. The World Bank and others didn't say anything. And the Western country did not say anything. They poured money on us. We became the darling of the World Bank and Bretton Woods institutions and all that. And yet still, if you look around, I feel sad for Wager, Abublushi, and all that. It's a total failure, and I have to admit it.
Well,
it shouldn't be. We don't deserve it. With all the gold and the wealth that we have, and all the knowledge that we have gained, well educated, and you still see the shanties and the dirt and the filthy thing surrounding us. Go to Kumasi, it's very disturbing. Accra here, it's very disturbing. Why should it be so? It's terrible. We have failed.
The next generation, this generation.
Yes.
You say your generation has failed us.
Yes.
But it appears that this generation is not doing anything about it. They are happy with the situation. They are happy, for example, with free SHS. They are happy with planting for food and jobs. They are happy with LEAP. They are happy with all manner of youth starts, name them. So the reaction that a failure which would have to trigger anger must bring about is not there.
Well, are you talking about yourself? Are you happy with what you see that the majority of our youth wake up in the morning with nothing to look forward to? Are you happy with that? The scale of unemployment, the inflation, the debt. And we have caused it. My generation has caused it. Why? Because we set up a divestiture implementation committee with the help of the World Bank to divest the industrial, manufacturing, and agricultural foundations that the Nkrumah generation built, with hundreds of factories, manufacturing factories and industries. And we have to divest, sell them out, leave some to rot in the forest and the bush and all that.
Right.
When you do that, then you place the country in a state of permanent inflation and unemployment, because then we import about 90-95% of what we consume. If you do that, you have killed the soul of the country. And that is what my generation has done.
You see, so, Uncle Chaba, you speak very deeply, and I feel a lot of emotion and connection in what you say. But for some of us who speak up, you have other young people who you expect to join the charge, to join the crusade, like you did back then, which was the mainstay. The 1947 disturbances, the youth were leading it, 1948, and the run up to independence, all the struggle. These days you speak up and you have young people, whether they have been hired or paid, coming back to insult you and abuse you, put you in political clothing and call you all manner of names. Young people. The same people you say should be angry, the same people you say have not been treated fairly, are the ones who come speaking at those who are trying to awaken their minds. What's wrong?
That is the work of my generation. If you take away history and you are not teaching history, that's what happens. Can you imagine it in Ghana? There is not a single book of Nkrumah that is a required text in our national curriculum. How can it be so? You can have students, political science students, graduating from the University of Ghana, having said 4 years, and they would not have been recommended any single book of Nkrumah to read.
But so, they would have read Walter Lippmann, Jürgen Habermas, Max Herrmann. They would have read all of those.
But the importance is Nkrumah and what he's saying and his example and the anger and all that. So if you learn that, it helps. For example, Yachi, he has written his writing about Komfanochi and all that. And then as I was listening to you, then it came to my mind, Komfanochi, they had 77 laws.
Right.
And one of the laws was that settlements must be about 200 meters away from water bodies.
Right.
You understand? At that time, that is part of the laws. And if you foul or desecrate water bodies, it's tantamount to death. And my great-great-grandmother suffered from that. So it worked. But if you don't teach this, that is what happens. history is very, very important. Very, very, very important.
As we celebrate Black History Month, there are those who have a perception that, oh, it's for Rastafarians, it's for people who feel Afrocentric, it's for Black Americans who are trying to connect, with their African side. But it's not for those of us living on the soil, because we live it every day anyway. Should that be the case?
That is the sad aspect of it. They know more about our story, our history, than most of us who are here, because we are not taught. But out there in the diaspora, they have access to books, they have access to library, research facilities and all that. So they get to know and they get frustrated and they want to come and help, but they meet with frustrations. And also likewise, Ghanaians who have studied abroad in diaspora, who want to come also, they come and get frustrated because of this mental block or mental enslavement that Marcus Garvey, Bob Marley talked about, that we have to free ourselves from mental slavery. And that is a problem that we face. We face here.
Whose job is it to turn these things around? I have a dream, Martin Luther King. You can mention him. That dream was actualized. Barack Obama became the first Black American president. Nkrumah's dream towards colonial freedom achieved. Uhuru Kenyatta named them, Jomo Kenyatta, all those great guys. But whose job is it now in the present generation to turn things around?
It is the job of the younger generation. Because again, if you go to history, you will realize that you can't depend on the tired and exhausted elderly generation. They have done their bit. They get to a point where they get tired and exhausted. And it happened. If you look at Nkrumah's history, they were young, and when they came, they formed the Central Youth Organization of Youth, and so it was the youth. It was the youth who got Nkrumah to get out of the UGC.
But are they being given an opportunity these days?
That is it. But they took the opportunity.
But where is the opportunity, Uncle Ishaba? Where is it?
You have to seize it. The opportunity exists now. You have to seize it.
Where is the opportunity? I mean, if Dr. Nkrumah had a job, he was educated, he had a job. The likes of Akwaje, all those people who were part of the struggle, Nikwabuna Boni and the rest, they all had jobs to do. So they were okay, and then they saw that, look, we have lived in another world, we have come here, we have seen things as they are, systems as they work here, and we want to bring it here and perfect our system and create our own. These days you find people who are 35, they have done their master's degree, they have a full degree, they have nowhere to go to. There's no patient capital for them to even start anything if they want to start. Nobody's employing them. Everybody's asking for 5 years experience. They are not giving internship opportunities. They are not giving apprenticeship opportunities. So the whole thing is boxed together. And then we say the youth are not being forceful enough. Where are the opportunities? Where are they?
So they have to reject the system. They have to organize themselves. Just like Nkrumah, producers, and the others, they organize themselves. So they have to see that what has developed now, Nkrumah saw it, and he called it neocolonialism.
Right.
So you are going to have our own people who are going to behave like the British did. So like Nkrumah and others got rid of the British, they organized themselves into study groups and then linked with the youth organizations and then linked with the unions, market women, angry merchants, and all that. And we have that coming up. The merchants are angry. The unions, the workers, of course, are feeling the pinch of the economy.
Right.
The So it is there. They have to organize. And there are, in the society where we are now, power is there to be taken.
Right.
Because of the abysmal failure of my generation.
But your generation would not admit that.
I am admitting it.
Oh, yeah, well,
and I am asking them to admit it.
You are one of many. One of a few, sorry.
We have to get them to understand that they have failed. And you have to be hard on us. You have to be really hard on us.
The last time the president was booed, it was called disrespectful. In fact, the young people who did that were said to be very disrespectful and that we have lost our cultural value. And a whole member of parliament and a lawyer at that called them empty coconut heads with beards, and that the young generation cannot do it if it is left for them to do.
That is a lie, and the young generation know it. They are bamboozling you and scaring you. They can't do anything. In fact, if you go back again and you look at the history of particularly Komfo-Anokye and that period, in our society, there comes a time that you are given the chance to vent your spleen.
Right.
Utimibu akutia. You can go to the palace at a particular time and speak to the earth, to the hearing of the chief of your displeasure.
As is done in Teshies
yeah,
during their festivals.
Right. So
through songs.
So it shouldn't be anything that we should kick against, or my generation should tell the youth not to. Because it's my rule that has created that condition for them to be angry.
Uncle Shabbat, let's wrap up on this note. We are asking the youth to take the opportunity and perhaps to be angry, to demand for what is due them. We are asking the elderly to admit that they have failed us. We are asking that we recognize our African history and know where we are going from here, so that we are not misguided. We're asking that we teach history in school. We're asking that people are given the opportunity.
Yes.
But at the heart of it is polarization. You're asking for people to gather, and there's political polarization. When young people gather, they're either NDC or NPP. Those who gather on their own, if they don't belong to either side, they find a way to annihilate them, to suppress them, and to kick them out. How do we tackle this? That's my final question.
Yes, that is the neo-colonial structure, and that is exactly what it does to polarize society. Unfortunately, the 1992 Constitution was prepared and fashioned the same way to polarize the society. Because where in a constitution you have to hail from and have residence qualifications in order to
aspire to be a member of parliament.
That is polarization of society. And the result of it is what we call the World Bank. So you have to have a World Bank in Ashanti or Volta region in order to win power. And that has polarized society. And that is terribly wrong. And that's what we have done. And that has to change. So I call the NDC, NPP and the NDC Dukadaya.
Dukadaya?
Yes.
The NPP and the NDC are Dukadaya?
Dukadaya.
What does it mean?
They are two sides of the same coin.
Okay. Same team, different jerseys?
Yes, they are the same. Their origins are the same.
I call them Ajana 1, Ajana 2.
Oh, call them Dukadaya.
Dukadaya, okay.
They are two coins of the same, two sides of the same coin. So we call them Dukadaya.
Dukadaya.
And then I ask, who will give a counterfeit coin to the blind?
Wow.
And that is what my generation does.
Counterfeit coin to the blind.
To the blind.
Wow.
We are wicked.
We are wicked.
My generation, we are wicked and self-serving.
Uncle Chaba, thank you very much. Grateful for your time. Uncle Chaba Adai Sibo is a historian, is the founder of the Black History Month in the United Kingdom. He is also was very instrumental towards the end of the civil war in Liberia and Sierra Leone, and has been sharing his thoughts with us. He's also worked greatly for Greater London.